we've had almost an annual flooding up in Pine Island and our constituents in Goshen. And while there is a long-term, large plan that will etc. That's all part of the Army Corps of Engineers grant plan, which right now is in the phase of what they call project management plan. There was a recon study done, back it up a little bit. I'll give you a Cliff Notes version. Stop me if you have a question. Back in 2007, we had a horrendous flood. Celery Avenue was underwater, basements were flooded. Neil was at my house. He looked at my 4 foot of wet sheetrock in my finished basement. And subsequent to that, the Army Corps of Engineers came out, looked at the area, and they did a recon, they call a reconnaissance study, looking at options varying from no action to investigating possible actions based on cost-based analysis, cost-benefit analysis. 2008, that recon study was completed, and then they started on the project management plan. And the project management plan sat for a year and a half until Mr. Philmeyer and I wrote a letter to every elected official from God right on down. You guys all got a copy. And then the Army Corps and the DC decided to speed up things and get together. We had meetings with the County Executive's Office, Army Corps of Engineers, DEC, local officials, and now we're in that phase of project management plan. The project management plan, the letter that Mr. Halloran alluded to from Dave Church, that was a letter that was sent out by Dave Church, our planning commissioner, who is spearheading the county portion of the project management plan, to all the concerned parties, asking them for their input on what we would like to be looked at during the phase of the study phase of getting the river to flow back to its original state back in the 70s. That a little bit, I think, was a little taken out of context. Mr. Church's letter, his request actually to everyone, saying, we're doing a project management plan, what does everybody want us to look at? The landfill closing and squeezing the river was one of them, among many other things. So with that, we give that to the Army Corps of Engineers. Their engineers come through, look at all of that. They have already determined that they'll be modeling the waterways, the watersheds, the far reaches up in Quaker Creek, Gardenville Creek, how much water is piling in there, how much water is coming in from Middletown, and what do we need to do to make that river handle this water. So in the interim, what we Soil and Water have been working with our DEC with is to, from below the Palace Island Bridge to the Route 17M Bridge, there's been a lot of sapling bowling. They call it bowling, where you'll have 5 or 6 saplings come up out of a stump, and that has been holding back the water. That has been an impediment to water flow at a high water level. I would like to take this all anytime for a tour of what the proposed work plan is. Anytime you want to, just let me know. So the department had identified 4 areas of issue and concern in order for Soil and Water to go through and remove that impediment during the high water flow. One was that they had a concern what kind of work was going to be done around the landfill that would compromise the integrity of the bank. We have decided that there will be no work at all done. The east side is our side of the river, the west side is of the rivers where landfill is. There will be no work done on the west side from the upper confluence of the Chichung Canal and the Walk Hill River. That's where actually the straight run is the Chichung Canal. The Walk Hill River goes around by Soon, empties out below Hickok Lake. There'll be no work done on the west side from the upper confluence of the Walk Hill and Chichung down to the 17M Bridge. By not touching anything there, well, let me give you the fourth. The other was the DEC. If we were going to clear cut, we would need a wetland permit. But because we're not going to clear cut, we are going to identify trees and selectively remove them. There's no permitting necessary there. We had a question with bat forage and potential possible bat habitat, Indiana bat. The fact that we're leaving canopy, and the DEC will be working with us to identify trees and make sure that canopy is left so that the bugs have a place to live, so that the Indiana bat, if they fly there, will have something while they're going through. So we'll be working with that in the future. What is left is the DEC's requirement that this project obtain a floodway development project permit, which is giving the authority to the municipality to look at work that's done in a floodway, in a floodplain. I've brought out some of the things that we look at when we do floodplain project development. I believe in floodplain project development permitting. I think it's an absolutely integral part of protecting the community and the people in the community against floods. We talk about elevations when you build. We talk about areas of coverage where you cover permeable soils. We talk about changing the courses of drainage into other people's property. We talk about the very intent of these rules and regulations are to minimize impact of flooding on new buildings, new projects, whether it be trailer parks, whether it be homes, whether it be businesses, whatever. We talk about rise versus no rise when we talk about floodplain building development. We talk about, is it going to cause flooding? Is it going to hurt your neighbor? They're all very important part and parcel to having a wholesome community that's safe from flooding. Brought into effect by the National Flood Insurance Program, partnered with the DEC, who, in New York State, who also partners with the local municipality. If somebody wanted to build a 30-acre greenhouse in the Black Earth and put up a roof on 30 acres, can you imagine the intensity of water that would generate into the Wallkill River? We want Mr. Halloran to look at that and say, geez, is that really good for the river? If somebody wants to put in a development on the edge of a floodplain that wants to put in maybe 100 homes, blacktop all the driveways, what is going to happen to that water that used to go into the pasture that's now going to run into that floodplain? Ultimately, is going to discharge into the Wallkill River. We want Mr. Halloran and this board to look at that. We don't believe that what we're about to undertake is a floodplain development project. I believe the floodplain development project permitting process has been hijacked in order to address these various concerns that you're talking about. We're talking about the landfill. We're talking about that picture from 1990 of slipping away. 20 years ago, gentlemen, that picture was taken. I believe, I'm not a scientist, no more than Mr. Clint or anybody else here, that there is a movement in that landfill. What we are proposing is to take trees off the east bank, our bank, and again, these only in the floodway, to minimize the effect of it acting like a picket fence, capturing and holding back water that is causing, flooding. As a matter of fact, when you look through what the rules and the regulations and the intent of this regulation is, they even tell you that you can't put any fencing along that's perpendicular to flowing water. We're trying to remove that fence, gentlemen. That's what we're trying to do. Is it going to increase velocity? It's going to deliver that water out sooner and not allow it to back up. We believe, the Soil and Water believes, the DEC, I believe, believes that if we work on the east side, that water will be diverted away from the landfill. A high rise of flood stage water on the banks of that landfill and the dewatering of that saturated soil